Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to a new episode of One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about season 1, episode 3 of AMC's Kevin Can F Himself, entitled We're Selling Washing Machines. Now, generally I like to talk about the episode title, but for this episode, I really can't figure out why it's called We're Selling Washing Machines. Unless I'm forgetting something, and you can let me know in the comments if I am. I don't remember anything happening that could be directly or indirectly tied to washing machines, but the only thing that I can guess is that it's kind of like an allusion to the idea of having like a cover business for your dirty business. So like the We're Selling Washing Machines is kind of like, the idea of Patty is selling hair salon services openly and outwardly, but underneath that, she's actually selling drugs. So that's the only thing I could think of, is that, since we get the backstory on how she got into it, that's where that title comes from, but that's my best guess. I can't think of anything that's a little bit more overt or a little bit clear about where the title came from. But I mentioned last week with episodes 1 and 2, and actually before I even get into that, I see now that AMC Plus is going to continue to get to air the episodes a week prior to AMC airing them. I thought what was going to happen was they had whatever week it was, I think, last week, where they were going to air episodes 1 and 2 on AMC Plus. Then they were going to air them that following Sunday on AMC. And then I figured the following Sunday after that, AMC Plus and AMC would then air episode 3. So I didn't realize that episode 3 was going to drop on AMC Plus at the same time as episode 1 and 2 dropped on AMC. So like if we're going to be a week ahead, then we're going to be a week ahead, because I'm going to be getting the episodes when AMC Plus drops them, as opposed to when they air on AMC. So, maybe that could be kind of cool. We can have discussions in the comments, in the week between the AMC Plus release and the AMC release. And then maybe once people watch it on AMC, the conversation can continue. So that could be pretty cool. There'll be some overlap there between the AMC Plus releases and the AMC ones, but I'm cool with that. So, yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, I thought this episode, actually, before I get to this episode, I want to talk about a couple of things that I had issues with last week, which they're not really issues, but kind of like concerns that I had about the show going forward, because I'm wondering, like, where does this show go when you have a portion of the show that is so difficult to watch? And when I recorded episodes 1 and 2, the video for that, I had not yet seen any online reactions to the show. Few people had AMC Plus to watch it, and it was just not really being talked about. But in the time since it aired on AMC, I've seen more people talk about it, and I've seen a few people who talked about it in the time in between. And people are across the board like, I can't watch the sitcom stuff. It's too bad. It's too hard to watch. And with that part being so difficult to watch, it made me wonder, what's the direction for this show? Because you can't have it be like every week you have the sitcom stuff where Kevin's an asshole, and then she goes into the single cam world and everything's all dark and gloomy, and she just kind of like internally grapples with Kevin's fuckery. Like, that's gonna play out real fast, and people are gonna tap out on the show if they have to rely on the sitcom portion actually being watchable. So I'm like, okay, where is this show going? It's only 2 episodes in, but I hope to get a clear idea. And I don't necessarily think I have a clear idea of where it's going just yet, but I do like the direction it took this week. So this week we get backstory on how Patty got into selling drugs, and we also kind of get a team up of sorts, and what looks to be a road trip for them next week. So I like the idea of seeing them on this road trip next week, and I really liked learning about Patty, because the way I like to structure these reviews, sometimes I like to talk about the things that I liked, talk about the things I didn't like, and then give like a couple of thoughts on things that maybe don't fall into the like or dislike category, but just observations that I made. And one of the things that I really liked about this episode was that Patty backstory. And also, we learned that Patty also has that same experience that Allison has. When she leaves the multicam sitcom world, leaves the kitchen and goes to the other room, and now it's all, back to the gritty, grimy, dark kind of depression world that she lives in. We see that Patty lives in that world too. Patty has, there's this whole situation with Kevin stealing this Kevin Hart sign. God, this is so fucking dumb. Stealing this Kevin Hart sign, and they have this whole plan to hang it up, and Neil gets hurt. And so Patty goes to get a prescription filled for painkillers for him. And we see that she's now in the dark world too. I like calling it the dark world. I might actually call it that. She's in now the dark world too. And we see that she must be in a similar situation to Allison in her dissatisfaction, not necessarily with her marriage because she's not married, but with her life and the idea of a bumbling man fucking up your life. So like she's dealing with that as well. So she goes there and she picks up the prescription for his pain meds, and the shady pharmacist, I think his name was Terrence or something, offers her generics on the low. So like, kind of like, if you need anything else, I got you. And she ends up in a situation where someone else needs some prescription drugs, and she goes, and that's the start of it. So this woman who comes to her hair salon who needs who gives her a Memoirs of a Geisha book, which we find out later she's currently using to hide the money that she gets from her drug sales. I thought that was a nice little touch there. But I liked getting that backstory about Patty. I liked learning that she is dealing with the same kind of reservations about the men in her life and not just Allison. So like, I think that's pretty cool. And then speaking of the men in her life, this guy Kurt, man, what the fuck's wrong with this? Like, this guy's, he's shitty in an entirely different way. He's a more subtle kind of shitty, but like, this guy's like giving her like bagged salads that cost, what he said, like $2.49 or some shit for dinner. And then he's asking her for the car. He's like asking to have sex. And it's like, and he's asking like pitifully, like, hey, would you think maybe later tonight we could, no, we're not going to do that. And it's like, you don't just feed her salad out of a bag and go, yeah, you think we can have sex tonight? No, not happening. But I do like that aspect though, that she has her brother on one hand who's a buffoon, and then she has this guy she's dating who's just totally inept, and this guy fucking proposes to her outside of the pharmacy where a drug bust just happened within 3 feet of her. Like, talk about just a complete obliviousness to the situation. Like, that is not the time to propose when you're sitting outside after she just witnessed a drug bust and the police might want to talk to her. This is not the time to propose. Like, this guy is a complete clown. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about Kurt and his nature a little bit later when I get into the things that I didn't like about the episode. But like I said, I really like the background story on Patty. And so Allison, I thought this was interesting for Allison, was that I like the fact that she was ultimately responsible for her own misfortune in this episode. So like, she wanted to get the pills so she could use them to poison OD Kevin. And she goes to, she's talking to Patty where we pick up from last week. And, Patty's like, I'm cleaned out. I have a re-up on Monday. And Allison shows up on Monday and she can't get the pills because she tried to snitch on the mechanic guy who was supposed to be hooking her up with drugs, but actually hooked her up like she was a prostitute. She snitches on him, and then he turns around and snitches on the pharmacist, who was the guy that he buys from. So now the pharmacist gets busted, and now Patty can't get her drugs. And she learns that, Allison learns all that in the moment, and you can see the depression on her face, like, oh, this is all my fault. And I think that's it. I don't think that Allison deserves to get screwed out of her Kevin killing drugs because she snitched on Marcus. But I just thought that was a nice kind of touch that kind of came around in that way. That, like, we start with this Marcus guy, supposedly like, yeah, I know a guy can get you some drugs. And he puts her in a very bad situation. Like, go meet under this bridge at midnight, meet up with this guy. He has her get in the car. Like, this could have went real wrong. And Marcus set that up. So he absolutely deserves for her to call the police on him, as a form of revenge. But I just find it interesting that her vengeance ultimately is what screwed her from getting the pills on Monday like she wanted. So I thought that was a nice little touch. And I think they're doing a good job now of building up via like shared experiences, a relationship between Patty and Allison. Like, I like this idea of like, we're both dealing with really shitty men in our lives, and they're going to kind of like use that to bond. And I like that, and I like the idea of this road trip to Vermont that they might be doing to get these drugs. So like I like the idea of them having, a solo road trip. I wonder if that means that episode 4 won't have any of the sitcom stuff, which would be a fucking blessing. I can tell you that. um, so I think that's everything that I want to talk about that I really liked about the episode. I really like, it's just the stuff that we learned, the relationship that they furthered between Allison and Patty, learning about Patty and Kurt and all that kind of stuff. I thought all that stuff was really, really good. And then I think the last thing that I liked about this episode was I like that I feel like the show is posing the question of, is it okay to cheat if you are unhappy in your marriage? Because this guy Sam, the guy that's from Allison's past that runs this diner, clearly these two had a thing before. Clearly they're both still into each other, and she goes to meet up with him for his 8 years sober party or whatever at his AA meeting, and she leaves the house dressed in a way that should have been a red flag to Kevin, but Kevin's such a piece of shit, he doesn't even know what's going on. So just the way she was looking should have been a red flag compared to how she normally dresses. She leaves, she goes to this thing, she's like playing footsie with the guy, and like they're just all cuddled up, and then his wife shows up, and the reality comes in. Reality kind of sets in, right? And I just find it interesting. It seemed to me like in that moment, even though Allison openly said she has no intentions of cheating, very clearly she was it's like she was preparing for a date. So like she was preparing to cheat, even if you look at it from an emotional perspective. Maybe not literally have sex with Sam, but she was prepared to emotionally cheat with this guy. Like and she did, like I said, she's playing footsie with the guy and all this kind of stuff. She flirting on Tan. So I think it makes you wonder, because I think, we had these first 2 episodes to build up a lot of hatred for Kevin. I know I did. And I wonder if there's a part of the whatever people are watching this show who are looking at this like, okay, Kevin's a piece of shit, but like what you're doing with Sam isn't cool. Or are there people who are like, fuck Kevin. Like I don't care. Like go ahead and do whatever with Sam. And then how does that reflect on Sam? Is Sam's wife a Kevin? I think that might be interesting to find out. Is because Sam seems equally willing to cheat on his wife with Allison, and I'd be really interested to find out is Sam's wife someone who audiences might perceive as being someone who's like, yeah, fuck her, who cares if he wants to cheat? Or if she's actually like a really good person and it makes Sam look like an asshole. So like that's something that they can play out too, that I'd be really interested in seeing as well. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about with Sam and that. But the thing that I didn't like, which is the thing that I'm certain nobody likes, is anything having to do with the sitcom portion of the show. I think it's awful. And the thing is, I don't know if I'm starting to wonder if they don't realize, they being the people who create the show, if they don't realize just how good of a job they did at making Kevin such a hateable character. Because the Kevin stuff is unwatchable to me. And I think they would have done a much better job with this if they had made Kevin a little bit less obvious in his fuckery. Like if they had made Kevin kind of like Kurt, right? Maybe not as bland and as boring as Kurt, but if his bad personality traits were a little bit more subtle and not just like fireworks going off, like look at me tearing through the room, doing and saying all sorts of things that are going to make you want to hate me. If they had toned that down, would the sitcom portion actually be funny? Would it be in a way where it's almost like you were watching 2 shows, where you could pull out all the sitcom scenes from all the episodes, put them together, and have an actually respectable, maybe 30 to 60 minute sitcom episode that's actually decent? And I feel like they could have done that, and that would have been incredible had they not done such a great job of making Kevin so insufferable. And I don't know if they're doing this on purpose, because if they are, it could backfire if they think that this isn't as bad as it is. Because I know, even though I'm very intrigued by everything that happens in the dark world, I am equally as turned off by the sitcom stuff. And it's to a point where, like, if the dark world stuff doesn't continue to escalate and get more and more interesting on some like Breaking Bad type shit, If it doesn't continue to escalate to that point, I'm not going to be able to finish watching the show because I'm gonna gain nothing from the sitcom aspect of it. Whereas right now, you kind of get that juxtaposition between, you know, the sitcom and the dark world, and then you get that reasoning for why Allison is in the place that she's in. But that wears out after a few episodes. It's like right now, I got it. You know, it's very clear why Allison wants this guy dead, and I'm totally on board with it. But if she actually kills him, where does the show go? You know, does the show continue? I think Kevin kind of constantly needs to be around. Are we going to get any? I'd like to see some backstory on Kevin. How'd they get together? Has Kevin always been this shitty, or did he get like this once they were married? Did he used to be like a classy kind of debonair, ladies' man kind of guy, and then he just became this once he got comfortable? Like, there's so many interesting directions they can take this, but it has to happen now because I already, just based on what I have seen on the internet, people are really not into the portions that are like the sitcom. And it's bad enough to make you check out on the show altogether. And there's a lot of interesting things they can do. So I'd like for that to not happen. But yeah, the Kevin stuff is bad. And I kind of wish they had maybe just turned it down just a little bit. And it would have been so much more tolerable. And there could have been so much more potential. Like, I love the idea of having a quality sitcom and a quality drama in the same show. Like, that could have been brilliant. But right now, we're sitting in a place where I get it to make the point of how bad Kevin is. That stuff is really bad, but it's unwatchable. It is so terrible. So, like, I hope they have a plan for the sitcom shit. But as of now, I'm still in on the show, so I'll be back next week for episode 4, which should be about a week prior to it airing on AMC. Like, this is weird. Like, that I'm recording the episode 3 video and posting this while people are just now watching the episodes 1 and 2 from last week. But I'm gonna hang with it for now, so I'll see you guys next week for episode 4. Peace.